The Adventures of Pinocchio. Master Antonio finds a piece of wood. All fairy tales begin with the words, "Once upon a time there was." This story also begins with the words, "Once upon a time there was a king," my little readers will say. No, children, not a king. Once upon a time there was a piece of wood. I can't say where the old man found this piece of wood, but it was in his room when our story began. The old man's name was Master Antonio. Master Antonio wanted to make a new leg for his table. He took his axe and began to cut the piece of wood with the axe. Suddenly, he heard a very small voice. "Do not hit me so hard." Master Antonio looked round the room. There was nobody there. He looked under the table. Nobody. He looked under the bed. Nobody. He opened the door of his room and looked into the street. There was nobody in the street. Again, he took the axe and began to work with it. "Oh, oh, don't hit me! Stop hitting me!" cried the same voice. Master Antonio opened his mouth. He didn't know what to do or what to say. Master Antonio gives his piece of wood to his friend Geppetto. At that moment his friend Geppetto came in. "Good afternoon, Master Antonio," said Geppetto. "What do you want to make with that piece of wood?" "A new leg for my table." "What brought you to me, Geppetto?" "My legs," said Geppetto. "Master Antonio, I came to ask something of you." "I'm ready to help you," answered Antonio. "Will you give me a piece of wood? I want to make a nice wooden puppet. It must know how to dance and jump like an acrobat. I'll go from one town to another and show my puppet to the people. They will give me money to buy bread and milk. What do you think of my plan?" Master Antonio was a kind old man. "Take this piece of wood," he said to Geppetto, and gave it to him. Geppetto thanked Master Antonio and went home with a piece of wood. Geppetto makes a wooden puppet. Geppetto lived in a small room. There were not many things in it. He had only one chair, a bed, and an old table. He put the piece of wood on the table. Then he took a knife and began to make his puppet. "What name shall I give him?" he said. "I think I'll give him the name of Pinocchio. It's a very nice name." At first, Geppetto made the puppet's hair. Then he made his head, and then his eyes. When the eyes were ready, they looked at Geppetto. Then he began to make the nose. Suddenly, the nose began to grow, and it grew and grew and grew. It became a very, very long nose. He cut the nose off, but it grew again. He cut it off again, and it grew again. "This puppet wants a long nose," he said. Then he began to make the mouth. When the puppet's mouth was ready, it began to laugh at him. "Stop it," said Geppetto. But the mouth laughed and laughed. "Stop it, I say," cried Geppetto. The mouth stopped laughing, but the puppet put out its tongue. The tongue was very long. Geppetto worked and worked. When the face was ready, he made the body, then the arms and the hands. Suddenly, somebody took Geppetto's cap off his head. He looked around, and what did he see? He saw his cap on the puppet's head. "Pinocchio, give me back my cap, do you hear?" But the cap was on Pinocchio's head, and he didn't want to give it back to his father Geppetto. Geppetto was very angry with him, but he could do nothing, so he began to make the puppet's legs. When the puppet's legs and feet were ready, Pinocchio hit his father on the nose with his foot. "You are a very bad boy," said Geppetto to him. "You are very, very bad." Then Geppetto began to teach him to walk. He showed him how to put one foot before the other. Soon Pinocchio began first to walk and then to run round the room. Then he jumped into the street through the window and ran away from his father Geppetto. Geppetto ran after him. "Stop him! Stop him!" cried Geppetto. A policeman tried to catch Pinocchio, but Pinocchio ran too fast. Pinocchio walks about the town. Pinocchio walked about the town all day. When night came, it began to rain. Pinocchio was very cold. He was very hungry too. There was not a man, a woman, or a child in the street. There was not even a dog. At last Pinocchio went to a house in the street and knocked at the door. Somebody will open it, he thought. A little old man looked out of the window and cried out to him. "What do you want at this late hour?" "Oh, please, please," said Pinocchio. "Give me a little piece of bread." "Wait there, I'll be back in a minute," said the little old man. He thought, "It is one of those boys who like to knock at the doors of the houses and then run away." Soon the window opened again, and Pinocchio heard the voice of the same little old man. "Come up to the window and hold out your cap." Pinocchio took off his cap and held it out. And what do you think? A lot of water came down on him from the window. Pinocchio's feet burn away. At last he found Geppetto's house. He went in and closed the door. He was cold and hungry. He was so hungry that he could not stand. So he sat down near the warm fireplace. He was very cold, so he put his feet near the fire. Soon he was warm, and he fell asleep. But his wooden feet were so near the fire that they burnt away. Pinocchio felt nothing. He slept and slept. Suddenly, somebody knocked at the door. Pinocchio opened his eyes. "Who is there?" asked Pinocchio. "Me," answered the voice. It was Geppetto's voice. Pinocchio wanted to jump up and open the door, but he fell down. "Open the door!" cried Geppetto from the street. "Oh, Papa, I can't," answered the puppet. "Why can't you?" "Because I have no feet." "Open the door, I tell you," said Geppetto. "I can't stand up. Oh, what shall I do? What shall I do?" At last Geppetto jumped into the room through the window. He was very angry at first, but when he saw his Pinocchio without feet, he was very sorry for him. He took him in his arms and kissed him. Geppetto sells his coat and buys a schoolbook for Pinocchio. Next morning, Geppetto made new feet for Pinocchio. The puppet was very happy. He began to jump and dance round the room. "I want to show you that I am a good boy," he said to his father. "Tomorrow I'll go to school." "Good boy," said Geppetto. "But I must have some clothes." Geppetto had no money, so he made Pinocchio nice clothes out of paper. "I look like a gentleman now," said Pinocchio. "Yes, you do," answered Geppetto. "But you know this, it is not good clothes, but clean clothes that make the gentleman." "Papa," said the puppet, "I can't go to school. I have no school book." "And I have no money," answered Geppetto. "I can't buy you a school book. But wait a little, I'll be back in a minute." Geppetto put on his old coat and ran out of the house. Soon he came back without the coat, but in his hand there was a school book for Pinocchio. "Where is your coat, Papa?" asked the puppet. "It's a very cold day." "I sold it because it was too warm for me," answered Geppetto. Pinocchio saw that his father was very kind, so he jumped up and kissed the old man again and again. Pinocchio goes to the theater. Next morning, Pinocchio went out of the house with the schoolbook under his arm. He wanted to go to school. "At school today I'll learn to read," he thought. "Tomorrow I will learn to write, and after that I will learn how to count. When I know how to read, write, and count, I'll begin to work. I'll soon have a lot of money. With my first money, I'll buy a beautiful new coat for my papa. He was so kind to me. He sold his coat and bought a schoolbook for me. I'll be kind to him, too." Suddenly, Pinocchio heard music at the end of the street. He stopped and listened. He didn't know what to do. "Shall I go to school, or shall I go and listen to the music?" he thought. "Today I will listen to the music, and tomorrow I'll go to school," said the lazy boy. He came up to a big wooden house. There was a big placard near the door. There were many people there. A man read the placard to the people. "Great Puppet Theater." Pinocchio wanted to go to the puppet theater, but he had no money. How could he get money for a ticket? He wanted to see the show very much. He thought and thought. At last he knew what to do. He sold his schoolbook to one of the boys in the street and bought a ticket. Pinocchio liked Harlequin and Punchinello very much. He laughed all the time. Suddenly, Harlequin stopped and looked at Pinocchio. "Is that Pinocchio?" he said to Punchinello. "Yes, it's Pinocchio," cried Punchinello. "It's Pinocchio! It's Pinocchio!" cried all the puppets. "It's our brother Pinocchio!" The master of the theater wants to burn Pinocchio. At that moment, the showman came in. He was a very big man. His beard was as black as ink. His mouth was big and round like a ball. His eyes were like two big red plates. He had a big whip in his hand. The puppets were very frightened. "What is all this noise?" he cried. "Please, please, sir," said Pinocchio. "I'm sorry. It wasn't me." "Stop talking. We'll talk to you after the show," said the showman. After the show, he said to Harlequin and Punchinello, "Bring that puppet into the kitchen. I'll put him on the fire and make a good dinner." The puppets brought Pinocchio to the kitchen. "Papa, oh Papa, come, oh come and save your Pinocchio," he cried. "I don't want to burn. I don't want to burn in the fire." Pinocchio saves his friend Harlequin. The showman with the black beard was not a bad man. When he heard poor Pinocchio's cries, "I don't want to burn, I don't want to burn," he was very sorry for him. "Don't cry," he said to Pinocchio. "Where are your papa and your mamma?" "Papa is at home, but I have no mamma," said Pinocchio. "You poor little thing, you poor little thing," said the showman. "But I have no wood, I can't make my dinner. What shall I do?" "I'll burn one of the puppets of my theater. Come here, soldiers." The door opened, and two wooden soldiers came in. The showman said to them, "Take Harlequin and throw him on the fire." "Oh, that poor Harlequin! He was so frightened. He fell with his face to the ground." Pinocchio saw this and began to cry. The showman looked at Pinocchio and said, "Stop crying. What do you want now?" "Don't burn poor Harlequin, dear sir." "But I want to make my dinner." "Then," cried Pinocchio, "throw me on the fire." All the puppets heard Pinocchio's words and began to cry. The wooden soldiers cried too. At first the showman said nothing. Then suddenly he said to Pinocchio, "You are a good boy. Come here and kiss me." Pinocchio ran up to him and kissed him on the nose. Thank you very much," said Pinocchio. Harlequin jumped up from the floor and began to dance. When the puppets saw this, they all began to dance, and they danced and danced all night. The showman makes Pinocchio a present of 5 gold pieces for Geppetto. The next day the showman asked Pinocchio, "What is your father's name?" "Geppetto." "Has he much money?" "Oh no, he's very poor. He sold his coat to buy a schoolbook for me." "Poor old man," said the showman. "I'm sorry for him. Here are 5 gold pieces. Go and give them to him." Pinocchio thanked the showman many, many times. Then he kissed the puppets and the soldiers and ran into the street. On the way home, he met a fox who was lame and a cat who was blind. "Good afternoon, Pinocchio," said the fox. "You know my name, but I don't know you," said Pinocchio. "I know your father well." "Where did you see him?" "I saw him yesterday at the door of his house." "And how was he?" "He had no coat on, and he was cold." "Poor papa! Soon he won't be cold." "Why not?" because I have a lot of money now." "A lot of money? You?" said the fox, and he began to laugh. The cat began to laugh too. "Don't laugh," cried Pinocchio. "Look at these 5 gold pieces." And he showed them the money. Pinocchio goes with the fox and the cat. The fox was lame, but he ran up to Pinocchio. The cat was blind, but he opened 2 large eyes. They looked like 2 green lamps. He shut them quickly again, so quickly that Pinocchio understood nothing. "And now," asked the fox, "what do you want to do with all the money?" "First," answered Pinocchio, "I want to buy a new coat for my papa. Then I'll buy a school book." "What for?" "I want to go to school." "Look at me," said the fox. "I lost my leg because I learned at school." "Look at me," said the cat. "I lost my eyes because I learned at school." Suddenly a little bird began to sing. It said, "Pinocchio, don't listen to them. They are bad friends." Poor little bird! The cat jumped at it and ate it up. Then he shut his eyes again. "Poor bird!" said Pinocchio to the cat. "Why did you eat it up?" "Because it listened to our talk." Suddenly the fox said to Pinocchio, "Do you want to have a lot of money?" "Oh yes, but how?" "Don't go home. Come with us and we'll show you how." "Where shall we go?" "You'll see," answered the fox. Pinocchio thought a little and then he said, "No, I won't go with you. I'll go home to my papa. He wants to see me." "Well, then," said the fox, "go home with your 5 gold pieces. But if you want to have 200 gold pieces, come with us." "But how can I get them?" "I'll tell you," said the fox. "We'll go to a field. In the field you must make a little hole and put into it 1 gold piece. Then you must throw some earth into the hole and make a little hill. After that, throw water on the hill. At night you can go to bed, and the gold piece will grow. In the morning you get up and come back. And what will you find? You will find a beautiful tree with many gold pieces on it." "Oh, how nice!" cried Pinocchio. He forgot his papa, the new coat, and the school book. He said to the fox and the cat, "I'll go with you." The House of the Red Crawfish. They walked and walked and walked. In the evening they came to the house of the Red Crawfish. "Let us stop here a little," said the fox. "We'll eat and rest for an hour or 2. Then we'll start. We must be in the field early tomorrow morning." They went into the house and sat down to dinner. The cat and the fox ate very much, but Pinocchio only took a piece of bread. The poor boy thought about the tree with gold pieces on it and could not eat. After dinner the fox said to the crawfish, "Give us 2 good rooms, one for Pinocchio and the other for me and my friend. We'll sleep a little and then we'll start." Pinocchio got into bed and fell asleep at once. In his sleep he saw a field. A lot of trees grew in the field. A lot of gold pieces grew on the trees. He wanted to take those beautiful gold pieces and put them in his pocket. Then somebody knocked at the door of his room, and he opened his eyes. It was the crawfish. He said, "It's time to get up." "Are my friends ready?" asked Pinocchio. "Ready? They went away 2 hours ago." "Why did they go away?" "Because the cat's kitten is ill." "And where will my good friends wait for me?" "At the field in the morning. They told me to ask you for the money for your dinner." Pinocchio gave the crawfish 1 gold piece for the dinner, said goodbye to him, and took the road to the field. It was very dark on the road. Pinocchio meets robbers. Pinocchio walked and walked along the dark road. Then he saw 2 black figures. They had black masks on their faces. Pinocchio put his gold pieces into his mouth and tried to run away, but suddenly he heard, "Your money or your life." Pinocchio could not answer because he had the gold pieces in his mouth. "Give us your money," cried the 2 figures. Pinocchio showed with his hands, "I have no money." "Give us your money or we'll kill you," said one of them. "Kill you," said the other. "And then we'll kill your father too." "No, no, no, not my poor papa," cried Pinocchio, and one of the gold pieces fell out of his mouth. The robbers saw it and cried, "Oh, your money is in your mouth. Wait a minute and you will see how we'll get it." One of them took Pinocchio by the end of his nose. He began to pull the nose up and down, but Pinocchio didn't open his mouth. The other robber took out a big knife. Suddenly Pinocchio caught the robber's hand with his teeth and bit it off. It fell on the ground. And what did he see on the ground? He saw a cat's paw. The robbers cried out. Pinocchio ran away and the robbers ran after him. The robbers ran after Pinocchio. Pinocchio ran and ran. Then he looked back. He saw the 2 robbers behind him. "What can I do?" he thought. Suddenly he saw a small house. It was as white as snow. He ran to the door of the house and knocked. Nobody answered. He knocked again. Then the window opened, and a beautiful child looked out of it. She had blue hair and a face as white as snow. "There is nobody in this house," she said, and shut the window. "Oh, beautiful child with the blue hair," cried Pinocchio, open the door, please." But the robbers caught him and hung him on a big tree in the forest. Then they sat down on the grass and waited. They waited and waited, but Pinocchio's eyes were open and his mouth was shut. The robbers didn't want to stay so long. They looked at Pinocchio and said, "We shall come back tomorrow. Then you'll be dead and your mouth will be open." And they went away. Nobody came to save Pinocchio. He waited and waited, but nobody came. Then he thought of his poor father, shut his eyes and opened his mouth. Did the gold pieces fall out of Pinocchio's mouth? What do you think, my little readers? The beautiful child with the blue hair saves Pinocchio. The beautiful child with the blue hair came again to the window. She saw poor Pinocchio on the big tree and was very sorry for him. She said to her dog, "Be quick, Medoro, and go to the forest. Go to the big tree and you will see a puppet on it. Bring him here." The child was at the door of the house when the dog brought her the poor puppet. She took Pinocchio into a little room and put him on the bed. Then two doctors came, a raven and an owl. "Is this poor puppet alive or dead?" asked the child. "I think," said the raven, "that the puppet is dead. But if he is not dead, then he is alive." "I think," said the owl, "that the puppet is alive. But if he is not alive, he is dead." Then the doctors went away. Pinocchio eats sugar and takes medicine. The child with the blue hair came up to Pinocchio with some medicine in her hand. "Drink it," she said. "I'll give you a piece of sugar with it." "Where is the piece of sugar?" "Here it is," said the child, and took a piece of sugar from a gold plate. "First give me the piece of sugar, and then I'll drink the medicine." The child gave him the sugar, and Pinocchio ate it very quickly. Then he drank the medicine. Suddenly Pinocchio jumped down from the bed. He was well again. The child was very glad. Pinocchio's nose grows. "Now come here to me," said the child, "and tell me your story." And Pinocchio told her everything. "And the 4 pieces of gold? Where are they?" asked the child. "I lost them yesterday," said Pinocchio. But that was a lie. He had them in his pocket. Suddenly his long nose began to grow longer. "And where did you lose them?" "In the forest near your house." At the second lie his nose again grew longer. "If you lost them near my house," said the child, "we'll look for them. We'll find them. We always find what we lose in that forest." "Oh," said the puppet, "I didn't lose the 4 gold pieces. I swallowed them with your medicine." At this third lie his nose again grew longer. It was so long now that the child looked at him and laughed. "What's the matter?" asked the puppet. "Why did you laugh?" "I laughed at the lie that you told me a minute ago." "But how do you know that I told the lie?" "My dear boy, I'm a fairy, and we fairies know lies at once. There are lies which have short legs, and there are lies which have long noses. Your lies have long noses." Pinocchio tried to run out of the room, but he couldn't. His nose was so long that it couldn't go through the door. Pinocchio meets the fox and the cat again. Pinocchio cried and cried over his nose, and he cried because he could not go through the door of the room. The child with the blue hair made Pinocchio's nose grow longer because she wanted to teach him a good lesson. Children mustn't tell lies. But he cried so much that she was sorry for him. She asked a large bird to come and help Pinocchio. The bird came and began to work at Pinocchio's nose. Soon it was the same as it was before. "What a good fairy you are," said the puppet. "I like you so much." "I like you too," answered the fairy. "Stay with me. You'll be my playmate, my little brother, and I'll be your little sister." "But my poor papa?" "He'll be here to die." "Oh!" cried Pinocchio and jumped up. "Little fairy, may I go and meet him?" "Yes, go. Go through the forest and you'll meet him." Pinocchio went into the forest. In front of the big tree he stopped, because he saw somebody behind it. Two figures came out on to the road. And who were they? His two friends, the fox and the cat. Pinocchio goes with the fox and the cat and puts his money in the field. "Oh, here's our dear Pinocchio!" cried the fox and kissed him. "How is it that you are here?" "How is it?" said the cat. "It is a long story," answered the puppet. "I'll tell you. When you went away from the house of the Red Crawfish, I met the robbers on the road." "Robbers? Oh, poor Pinocchio! And what did they want?" "They wanted to take my gold pieces." "Oh!" said the fox. "Oh!" said the cat. "But I ran away from them," said the puppet. "They ran after me and caught me and hung me on that tree." "Oh!" said the fox. "Oh!" said the cat. Then Pinocchio saw the cat's paw. It was very short. He asked him, "Why is your paw so short?" The cat tried to answer but couldn't. But the fox said at once, "I'll answer for my friend. An hour ago we met an old wolf on the road. He was very hungry and asked us to give him something to eat. But we had nothing. And what did my friend do? He bit off the end of his paw and threw it to that poor wolf." And the fox began to cry. He was sorry for the cat. Pinocchio cried too. Then he said to the cat, "You are a good cat. I like you. And now, why are you here?" asked the fox. "My papa will be here in a minute." "And your gold pieces?" "I have them in my pocket." "You can have 100 or 200 gold pieces. I told you to put your gold pieces in the field, and I told you how to do it. Why didn't you listen to me? Why don't you go now and put them in the field?" "Today I can't. I shall go another day." "Another day will be too late," said the fox. "Why?" "Because a man bought that field yesterday. After tomorrow nobody will put money there." "Is the field far from here?" "No, it isn't. We can show you where it is." "Will you come with us?" "You can put your money in the field at once. Then you will have 200 gold pieces. Will you come with us?" Pinocchio thought of the good fairy and of his old father, but not very much. He said to the fox and the cat, "All right, I'll come with you." And they went. "Here is the field," said the fox to the puppet. "Make a little hole in the ground with your hands and put your gold pieces into it." Pinocchio did so. "Now," said the fox, "bring some water." Pinocchio brought some water in his old shoe. He threw it on the earth over the hole. "Now we can go away," said the fox. "You can come back after 20 minutes, and you will find a tree with very many gold pieces on it." The puppet thanked the fox and the cat 100 times. "I'll make you a present," he said. "We don't want any presents," answered the fox and the cat. "We taught you how to get money without hard work. Goodbye." And the fox and the cat went away. A bird tells Pinocchio that the fox and the cat took his money. Pinocchio went back to the town and waited there for 20 minutes. Then it was time to go back, but when he came to the field, he saw nothing. There was no tree there with gold pieces on it. Suddenly somebody laughed. Pinocchio looked up and saw a bird in a tree. "Why did you laugh?" asked Pinocchio. "What's the matter?" "I laughed at those silly boys who think that money can grow on trees in the fields." "I don't understand you," said the puppet. "Then listen to me," said the bird. "When you were in the town, the fox and the cat came back to the field. They took your money and ran away. Try and catch them if you can." Pinocchio stood there in the field with his mouth open. Then he took the earth out of the hole with his hands, but there was no money there. Pinocchio falls into a trap. "I'm a bad puppet," he thought. "I don't listen to anybody. But now I shall be good. Where is my poor papa? Shall I find him in the fairy's house? I want to see him. I want to kiss him." So poor Pinocchio started to go to the fairy's house. He ran and ran, because he wanted to get to the fairy's house quickly. He was very hungry. He was so hungry that he went into a garden near the road and got some apples. But suddenly he got into a trap. It was a trap for little foxes, and the poor puppet was in the trap. Pinocchio began to cry, but nobody heard him. There were no houses there, and nobody walked along the road. A farmer finds Pinocchio and makes him his watchdog. At night a man came. He had a large stick in his hand. It was the farmer. He wanted to look at the trap. When he saw Pinocchio in the trap, he said, "Now I know who takes my chickens." "It isn't me, it isn't me," cried Pinocchio. "I only came to take some apples." "But are they your apples? Did you work in the garden?" "No, I didn't." "I'll teach you a lesson. You won't forget it for a long time." He took Pinocchio out of the trap, put him under his arm, and took him to the farmhouse. "It is late," he said. "I want to go to bed. I have no watchdog. You'll be my watchdog. If robbers come, knock at the door and say 'Whoa, whoa,' like a dog. I'll know what to do then." The farmer went into the house, and Pinocchio stayed in the yard. He was cold, hungry, and frightened. At last he fell asleep. Suddenly he heard voices in the yard. He got up and saw black fingers. They were martens. One of them saw Pinocchio and said, "Who are you?" "I'm Pinocchio. And why are you here?" "I must do the work of the watchdog." "Oh, so you are a dog?" "No, I'm not a dog, I'm a puppet." "Help us to get some chickens. We'll give you one chicken." "Whoa, whoa!" cried Pinocchio. "Whoa, whoa!" The farmer, who was asleep in the house, jumped out of bed and caught the robbers. "You are a good boy," he said to Pinocchio. "Thank you very much. Now you can go home." Pinocchio doesn't find the house of the beautiful child with the blue hair. Pinocchio ran quickly to the forest where the beautiful child with the blue hair lived. He saw the big tree and the field, but the little white house was not there. Suddenly he saw a white stone, and on it he read these words: "Here lies the child with the blue hair. She could not live without her little brother Pinocchio." Pinocchio fell with his face to the ground and began to cry. He cried all night. "Oh, little fairy, you were so good," he cried. "Why are you dead? And my papa? Where is he? I want to be with him. I'm afraid the robbers will come and hand me up again. What shall I do? Where shall I sleep at night?" Pinocchio meets the parrot, who takes him to the sea. Suddenly Pinocchio heard a voice. "Stop crying, child. Tell me, why are you here?" Pinocchio saw the parrot over his head. "Don't you know? I came to find the beautiful fairy, and she's dead. I can't stop crying," said Pinocchio. "Tell me," said the parrot, "do you know Pinocchio? He's a puppet." The puppet jumped to his feet. "I'm Pinocchio." "Do you know Geppetto?" asked the parrot. "Do I know him? He's my poor papa. Will you take me to him? Is he alive?" "I saw him 3 days ago by the sea," answered the parrot. "The poor man looked for you, but could not find you. So he made a little boat to go to another country to look for you." "How far is it from here to the sea?" asked Pinocchio. "If you want to go, I can take you there." "How?" "Sit on my back." "Oh, thank you!" cried Pinocchio and jumped on the parrot's back. The next morning they got to the sea. There were many people by the sea. "Oh, poor man!" Pinocchio heard. "What's the matter?" asked Pinocchio. "A poor father can't find his boy. He wants to look for him on the other side of the sea. So he made a little boat," answered an old woman. "Where is the little boat?" "There it is," said the old woman. Pinocchio saw a little boat with a very little man in it far out on the sea. "It's my papa! It's my papa!" he cried. Soon nobody could see the boat. It was too far away. "Poor man!" said the people, and they went away. Then they heard a cry. They looked round and saw a little boy in the sea. "I'll save my papa!" he cried. "Poor boy!" said the people. Pinocchio comes to an island and finds the fairy again. Pinocchio wanted to help his father, so he swam all night. In the morning he saw an island in the sea. He swam to the island. The sun was bright and the sky was blue. The puppet put his clothes in the sun. He wanted to dry them. Then he began to look at the sea. Where was the little boat? He looked and looked, but could see nothing, only the blue sky and the blue sea. There was no little boat with little man in it. He began to cry. But at that moment he saw a big fish in the sea. "Are there any towns on this island, Sir Fish?" asked Pinocchio. "Yes, there are," answered the fish. "You'll find a town not far from here." "And how can I get there?" "You must go to your left." "You swim about the sea all day and all night. Didn't you see a little boat with my papa in it yesterday?" "I think the dogfish ate him up last night," said the fish. "Is the dogfish very big?" asked Pinocchio. "Big? He's as big as a house." "Oh!" cried the poor puppet. Then he put on his clothes quickly and said, "Goodbye, Sir Fish. Thank you very much." He went to the left and soon came to a little town. There were many people in the town. They were all very busy. Everybody was at work. "Oh," said lazy Pinocchio at once, "I see that this town is not for me. I don't like to work." But he was very hungry. How could he get some food? He could ask for a little work or he could beg. But his father always said to him, "It is very bad to beg. Everybody must work." Then Pinocchio saw a man with a small cot. Pinocchio went up to him and said, "Will you give me some money? I'm very hungry." "Help me to pull this cot and I'll give you some money. It isn't very heavy," said the man. "Oh no, I won't do the work of a donkey," cried the puppet. "Then, my boy," said the man, "if you are so hungry, eat your laziness." Pinocchio begged and begged, but the people all said, "How can you beg? Go and look for work." At last he saw a nice little girl with 2 jugs of water. "Will you give me some water to drink?" asked Pinocchio. "Drink, my boy, if you want to," said the girl. Pinocchio drank some water. Then he said, "Thank you, I don't want to drink now, but I'm so hungry." The girl said at once, "Help me to carry home these 2 jugs of water, and I'll give you a piece of bread." Pinocchio looked at the jugs and didn't answer. "Then you'll have some nice soup," said the kind girl. Pinocchio looked at the jugs again, but said nothing. "And after the soup, I'll give you some nice sweets." When Pinocchio heard this, he cried, "I'll carry the jugs to your house." The jugs were heavy, so the puppet carried them on his head. They went into the house. Pinocchio sat down at a small table, and the girl put bread, soup, and sweets in front of him. The girl is the fairy. Pinocchio says he will be good. Pinocchio ate up everything. Then he wanted to thank the girl. He looked at her and, oh, what did he see? "What's the matter?" asked the girl and laughed. "Oh, little fairy!" cried Pinocchio. "I didn't know you at first. Oh, I'm so happy to see you again. Little fairy, I want to have a mama like other boys. Will you be my mama? I don't want to be a puppet anymore. I want to be a boy. Can you make me a boy?" "All right, you'll be a boy, but you must learn to be a good boy," said the fairy. "Do you think I'm not a good boy? Good boys like to learn and to work, and you. And I'm lazy." "Good boys don't tell lies, and I always tell lies. Good boys like to go to school. I'll be a good boy. I'll be a good little boy. Now, please tell me, where is my poor papa?" "I don't know. Shall I see him and kiss him again?" "I think so. Now, listen, Pinocchio. Tomorrow you will go to school." "I think that it's too late for me to go to school now," said Pinocchio. "No, it isn't. It's never too late to learn. You must learn and then work. Every man must work. Children must work too." "I will learn and I will work, but please tell me, shall I be a boy?" cried the puppet. "Yes, you'll be a boy," answered the fairy. Pinocchio goes with his schoolmates to see the dogfish. The next day Pinocchio went to school. The schoolboys began to laugh at him. They laughed at him all the time. But one day Pinocchio hit one of them. After that, they all began to like him and made friends with him. And the teacher liked him too, because Pinocchio always did his homework. But some of his friends didn't like to learn. They were lazy boys. The good fairy often said to Pinocchio, "They are bad schoolmates. They will do something bad to you." Pinocchio only laughed. One day on his way to school, he met some of his schoolmates. They came up to him and said, "There is a big dogfish in the sea, not far from here. We want to see him. Will you come with us?" "No, I want to go to school." "We can go to school tomorrow." "But what will the teacher say?" "The teacher will say what he likes." "And my mamma?" "Mamas know nothing," answered those bad little boys. "I'll go and see the dogfish after school." "Do you think that the dogfish will wait for you?" said one of the boys. "How far is it from here to the sea?" asked the puppet. "We can go there and be back very quickly." "Then let's go!" cried Pinocchio. And the boys, with their books and notebooks under their arms, ran to the sea. Pinocchio fights with his schoolmates. When they came to the sea, Pinocchio saw no dogfish. "Where is the dogfish?" he asked. "He's busy," said one of the boys. The boys all laughed. Pinocchio was angry and said, "Why did you tell me this story about the dogfish? We don't like the boys who like to go to school." Pinocchio was very angry with the boys, and soon they began to fight with him. They threw their notebooks and schoolbooks at him. But Pinocchio was very quick. The books all fell into the sea. Suddenly, one book hit the boy's head, and he fell down on the ground. "He's dead!" cried the other boys, and ran away. Poor Pinocchio stayed with his schoolmate. He cried, "Open your eyes and look at me. Why don't you answer? I didn't do it. I didn't hit you. What shall I do now? Why did I listen to my bad schoolmates? The teacher and my mamma often said to me, 'Don't make friends with bad boys.' But I didn't listen to them. What shall I do now?" Pinocchio saves the dog Alidoro. After this, the boys caught a big dog. They pulled him to the place where Pinocchio was and cried, "Catch him! Catch him!" And the dog ran after Pinocchio. Pinocchio ran away. The dog was very, very big. Pinocchio was frightened and ran to the sea. He could hear the dog behind him. The sea was near. The puppet jumped, 1, 2, 3, and fell into the water. The dog couldn't stop and ran into the water. But the dog couldn't swim well. Soon his head went under the water. When it came up, the dog cried, "Help! Help! Save me, Pinocchio!" The puppet was sorry for the dog, so he said, "All right, I'll save you, but you mustn't run after me." "I won't run after you, but be quick, Pinocchio." The puppet caught the dog's tail with his hands and pulled him out of the water. "Goodbye, Alidoro," cried Pinocchio. "Goodbye, Pinocchio," cried the dog. "Thank you very much. You saved my life. I won't forget that." A fisherman catches Pinocchio in his net. Pinocchio jumped into the water again. He swam and swam. Suddenly, he saw an island in front of him and a cave. "I'll go into the cave," he thought. But suddenly, something carried him up into the air. He was in a great net in which there were very many fish. Then a fisherman came out of the cave. There was green grass on his head. His face was green, and his eyes were green. His long beard was green too. He pulled his net out of the sea and cried, "I'll have a nice dinner of fish today." "I'm so glad that I'm not the fish," thought Pinocchio. The fisherman carried the net with the fish into the cave. It was dark in the cave. In the middle of the cave, Pinocchio saw a large fire. There was a frying pan on the fire. "Now we'll see what fish we have," said the green fisherman. He put his hand into the net and pulled out some fish. Then he pulled out Pinocchio. "What is this?" he cried. "A fish?" "I'm a puppet," said Pinocchio. "A puppet?" said the fisherman. "That's a new fish. I'll eat you and see if you're a good fish." "Eat me? But I'm not the fish. I can talk like you." "Very well. Then you are a fish which can talk. I'll put you in the frying pan with the other fish." Poor Pinocchio began to cry. The fisherman took some fish and threw them into the frying pan. Pinocchio couldn't speak, he was so frightened. The green fisherman took him by the head and Alidoro saves Pinocchio. Suddenly a big dog ran into the cave. "Get out!" cried the fisherman. But the poor dog was very hungry. "Give me some fish and I'll go," he said. "Get out, I tell you!" cried the fisherman. Then the dog heard a voice. "Save me, Alidoro! He wants to eat me! Save me!" The dog knew Pinocchio's voice, which came from the frying pan. What do you think he did? He jumped up, caught Pinocchio in his mouth, and ran out of the cave. The fisherman ran after him, but he couldn't catch him. The dog was too quick. Alidoro ran and ran, but he stopped at last and put his friend Pinocchio on the ground. Thank you very much, Alidoro," said the puppet. "We must all help each other. You saved me, and I saved you." Then the dog went home. Pinocchio's nose grows again. Pinocchio saw a small house and an old man in front of it. "Tell me, good man, do you know anything about the poor boy that another boy hit and who fell down?" asked Pinocchio. "A fisherman brought him to the house, and now," answered the man. "And now, is he dead?" "No, he's alive. He went home." Pinocchio was so happy that he began to jump and dance. Then he asked the old man, "Do you know who hit the boy?" "One of his schoolmates, Pinocchio." And who is this Pinocchio?" asked the puppet. "He's a bad boy. Do you know him?" "A little," answered the puppet. "And what do you think of him?" asked the old man. "I think that he is a very good boy. He wants to learn. He listens to his father." When the puppet told all these lies, his nose began to grow. Then he cried, "Good man, I told you a lie. I know Pinocchio very well. He's a very bad boy. He's lazy. He doesn't listen to anybody. He doesn't go to school. He goes away with his schoolmates and plays." At that moment his nose became the same as it was before. "Now I'll go to my good little fairy," he thought. Pinocchio goes back to the fairy's house. Pinocchio came to the fairy's house and knocked at the door. He waited and waited. At last a window opened, and Pinocchio saw a big snail. She said to him, "Who is there at this late hour?" "Is the fairy at home?" asked the puppet. "The fairy is asleep. But who are you?" "Pinocchio." "And who is Pinocchio?" "The puppet who lives in the fairy's house." "Oh," said the snail. "Wait for me there. I shall come down and open the door." "Be quick, I'm very cold." "My boy, I'm a snail, and snails can't be quick." The night was very bad. It rained cats and dogs. Poor Pinocchio was very cold and wet. He waited an hour for the snail, then 2 hours. He waited all night. Only in the morning the snail opened the door. "The fairy is asleep," she said. "I'm so hungry," cried Pinocchio. "Bring me something to eat." "At once," said the snail. Pinocchio waited 3 hours for the snail. At last she came back with a gold plate on her head. There was bread, a chicken, and 4 apples on the plate. "This is your breakfast," she said. The puppet was very glad to see these good things. He began to eat. Suddenly the fairy came into the room. "You were a bad boy again," the fairy said, "but I think it will be the last time." "I'm very sorry," said Pinocchio. "I'll be a good boy and I'll learn well." The fairy was very glad. At the end of the year she said to Pinocchio, "Tomorrow you won't be a wooden puppet. You'll be a boy. Tell your schoolmates to come here tomorrow. They will have breakfast in our house. I'll make 200 cups of milk. I'll buy 100 cakes and 500 sweets. We'll sing, dance, and play." Pinocchio was very happy, but there is always a but. Then the fairy said to Pinocchio, "Now go and ask your schoolmates to come for breakfast tomorrow. Come back home at once." "I'll be back very soon," answered the puppet. Pinocchio said goodbye to his good fairy and went out of the house. When Pinocchio's friends heard about the cakes and sweets, they all said, "We'll come tomorrow. Thank you very much." Pinocchio goes with his friend Candlewick to Boobyland. Now I must tell you that Pinocchio's best friend was a bad boy. His name was Romeo, but he was as long and thin as a candlewick, so his friends called him Candlewick. He was the laziest boy in the school, but Pinocchio liked him very much. When Pinocchio came to Candlewick's house, he said to him, "Tomorrow you must come to breakfast at our house." "Why?" "Tomorrow will be a great day for me. I'll not be a puppet tomorrow. I'll become a boy like you and all the other boys." "I'm sorry," said Candlewick, "but I want to go away." "Go away where?" Very far, very far away, to Boobyland. Come with me, Pinocchio. That's the best country for us boys. There are no schools there. There are no teachers. There are no books. Nobody learns in that country. Only think, the autumn holidays begin on the 1st of January and are over on the last day of December. That is the country for me. But what do the boys do in Boobyland? Asked Pinocchio. They play games and dance all the time. When night comes, they go to bed. In the morning, they begin to play and dance again. Will you come with me? No, 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 and again no, said Pinocchio. I must be a good boy. I must go home now. Goodbye, Candlewick. Wait for 2 minutes, Pinocchio. Think well. Do you know that there will be more than 100 of us? An old man will take us all to that country. He has a lot of donkey carts. I'm very sorry, but I can't go with all the boys to that great country. I must go home now, said Pinocchio. But he didn't go home. He thought a little and then asked, Do the holidays there really begin on the 1st of January, and are they over on the last day of December? Oh, yes, yes, cried Candlewick. Then I'll go with you to Boobyland. Pinocchio in Boobyland. In the morning they came to Boobyland. The old man stopped his donkeys, and the boys got out of the carts. Only boys lived in the country. The oldest were 14 and the youngest were 7 or 8 years old. They made a great noise in the streets. They sang and danced. Some boys played the drums. Others ran up and down. Some walked on their hands with their feet in the air. Other boys laughed and jumped. In every street there were theaters, and boys could stay there all day. On the walls of the houses Pinocchio saw the words, Long-live playgrounds, down with arithmetic, down with schools. Pinocchio soon made friends with everybody. He was so happy. So the hours, the days, the weeks, and the months passed. 5 months passed, and the happy days of the puppet were over. How? My readers will ask me. I'll tell you at once, my little readers. Pinocchio becomes a little donkey. It was morning. The sun was bright and the day was warm. Pinocchio jumped out of bed and went up to the mirror. And what did he see? He saw 2 long ears on his head, and they were donkey's ears. He began to cry, but it didn't help. Then he began to pull at his ears. He pulled and pulled, but his ears only grew and grew. The little puppy, who lived in the next room, heard his cries. He came into Pinocchio's room. He saw the donkey's ears on the puppet's head and asked him, "What's the matter with you?" "I'm ill, my dear little puppy, very ill." "Oh, I'm very sorry for you," said the puppy, "but I must tell you that very soon you'll not be a puppet, and you'll not be a boy." "Then what shall I be?" "You'll be a little donkey." "Oh, poor little Pinocchio!" cried the puppet. He tried to pull his ears out of his head, but they only grew longer and longer. "My dear boy," said the puppy, "what can you do? Nothing. I must tell you this. All boys who are lazy and don't want to go to school become little donkeys." "Oh, what shall I do?" "What shall I do?" cried the poor puppet. "I'll find Candlewick and break his bones, because he brought me to this town." When Pinocchio got to his door, he thought of his donkey's ears. The other boys mustn't see them. He put his cap on his head, pushed his ears into it, and pulled it well down over his nose. Pinocchio begins to bray like a donkey. When Pinocchio came to the house where Candlewick lived, he knocked at the door. "Who's there?" asked Romeo. "Me, Pinocchio," answered the puppet. "Wait a minute, I'll open the door." At last Candlewick opened the door. And do you know what Pinocchio saw? He saw his friend Candlewick with a cap on his head. The cap came down over his nose. "Is my friend ill like I am?" thought Pinocchio. "What's the matter with you, my dear Candlewick?" he asked. "Why have you that cap on your head? Why does it come down to your nose?" "Well, you see," answered Candlewick, "I fell down and broke my leg, so the doctor told me to put on the cap as medicine. And you, dear Pinocchio, why did you pull your cap down over your nose?" "I fell down and broke my arm, so the doctor told me to put on this cap as medicine." "Oh, poor Pinocchio! Oh, poor Candlewick!" Then they said nothing for a long time. They only looked at each other. At last the puppet said to his friend, "Can you show me your ears?" "Why not?" answered Candlewick. "But first, my dear Pinocchio, please show me your ears." "No, first you and then me." "Well," said the puppet, "let us take off our caps at the same time." "All right," answered Candlewick. "Listen," said Pinocchio, "I'll count." And Pinocchio began to count quickly. 1, 2, 3. At the word 3, the two boys took off their caps and threw them into the air. When Pinocchio and Candlewick looked at each other, they began to laugh, and they laughed and laughed. Suddenly Candlewick stopped and said to his friend, help me, Pinocchio." "What's the matter with you?" "I can't stand on my feet." "And I can't stand on my feet." "I can only stand on my feet and on my hands," said Pinocchio, and began to cry. He and Candlewick began to run round the room on their hands and feet. And after that, what must a donkey have, do you know? Yes, a tail. Soon Pinocchio had a tail, and Romeo had a tail. Their tails grew and grew, and the two boys became real donkeys. They couldn't talk now. They could only bray like real donkeys. Hee-haw, hee-haw! Suddenly they heard a voice. "Open the door! I'm the old man who brought you to this country. Open the door at once, I tell you." They opened the door, and the old man came into the room and said to the little donkeys, "Good, boys! You bray very well. Come with me now. I'll sell you for good money." The poor donkeys stood there with their heads down and their tails between their legs. What could they do? Nothing, nothing, nothing. Pinocchio dances in the circus. Now, my little readers, I must tell you all about this old man. He went from town to town and looked for boys who didn't want to go to school. He took them to Boobyland. There they didn't learn anything, but only played and played, and then became donkeys. When they were donkeys, the old man sold them for good money. Soon he sold Candlewick to a farmer, and Pinocchio to the director of a circus. This man wanted to teach Pinocchio to jump and dance with his other animals. From the first day, Pinocchio had a very, very hard life. He couldn't eat the grass, which his master gave him for breakfast and for dinner, so he was always very hungry. At last he learned to eat grass. At first he couldn't dance the dances which his master tried to teach him. His master beat him every day. At last he learned to dance many dances. Then a day came when people saw placards on the street corners. "Do not forget to come to our circus tomorrow. You will see all the acrobats and all the horses of the circus. You will see the star of the dance, little donkey Pinocchio. Come, come, come." Everybody wanted to see the star of the dance. A lot of people stood near the circus every day and bought tickets. Everything went well at first. Pinocchio jumped and danced. The children laughed and laughed. They liked him very much. But one night he fell down and broke his leg. He couldn't get up for a long time. When he got up, he was lame. "Pinocchio, Pinocchio, we want the little donkey. We want Pinocchio," the people cried. But the little donkey couldn't do anything for them. Next morning the animal doctor came to see him. When he saw Pinocchio's lame foot, he said, "I'm sorry for you. You'll be lame all your life." The director said to Pinocchio, "What can I do with a lame donkey? Nothing. You will eat a lot of food, and you can't work for it. I must sell you." He found a man who wanted to buy a donkey. This man asked him, "How much do you want for that lame donkey?" "2 gold pieces," said the director. "I'll give you 1 gold piece," answered the man. "He can't work. I want him only for his skin. I see that it is very hard. I want to make a drum for my children." The man took the donkey to the sea. There he tied a stone round the donkey's neck. Then he tied a rope round the donkey's legs. He held the end of the rope in his hand and threw the donkey into the water. Then he sat down on the ground and waited. Pinocchio becomes a puppet again. A dogfish swallows him. 50 minutes passed, and the man thought, "My poor little lame donkey is dead now. I'll pull him out of the water, and then I'll make a good drum out of his skin." So he began to pull at the rope. He pulled and pulled and pulled, and at last, what do you think he pulled out of the water? A little dead donkey? No, not a donkey. He pulled a little wooden puppet out of the water. When he saw the wooden puppet, the poor man opened his mouth and didn't know what to say. Then he asked Pinocchio, "And where is the little donkey that I threw into the sea?" "I am the little donkey," said Pinocchio and laughed. "You?" "Yes, me." "How can that be? You were a little donkey when I bought you." "Well, master, if you want to know, I'll tell you. Once I was a puppet. I went to school like other boys, but I was lazy and didn't want to learn. Then I ran away from home. One day I became a donkey with long ears and a long tail. Then a circus man bought me. He taught me to dance. But one night I fell and broke my leg. I became lame. So the director sold me to you, and you bought me. And I gave him a gold piece for you. Now, who will give me back my gold piece?" "And why did you buy me?" asked Pinocchio. "You bought me to make a drum out of my skin. A drum!" "Yes, and now where shall I find another skin?" "There are so many other little donkeys," said Pinocchio. "Tell me, you bad boy," said the man, "is that the end of your story?" "No," answered the puppet, "it isn't. When you threw me into the water, a lot of fish began to eat me. Some ate my ears, others my neck. Some fish ate the skin on my legs, and one fish ate my tail. They ate up all the meat on the donkey's body. Then they tried to eat the wood. They couldn't do that, because my wood is very hard. So they swam away. And now you know all the story. You know why you pulled the puppet out of the water and not the donkey." "I can laugh at your story," cried the man, "but I know that I bought you for 1 gold piece. I must have my money back. Shall I tell you what I'll do? I'll sell you again for a gold piece." "All right, sell me if you can." With these words, Pinocchio jumped into the water and swam away. He swam and swam. Suddenly, he saw... Do you know what he saw? He saw the great head of the dogfish. Only think how frightened Pinocchio was when he saw his great open mouth. Pinocchio tried to swim away from the dogfish. He worked with his arms, his legs, and his feet. He swam quicker and quicker, but nothing could help him. The dogfish swam quicker than the puppet. He swam up to Pinocchio, opened his great mouth with its great teeth, and swallowed him. It was very dark all round. Pinocchio could see nothing. He listened, but he could hear nothing. Suddenly he saw a light far away, and he began to walk to it. The light became brighter and brighter. He walked and walked, and at last he found... What do you think he found? Read the next chapter, and you will know what Pinocchio found in the body of the dogfish. Now you will know everything. Pinocchio walked and walked, and suddenly he saw a little table with a lamp on it. There was a little old man at the table. The old man was Geppetto, Pinocchio's father. Pinocchio was so happy that he wanted to laugh and he wanted to cry at the same time. He ran up to the table and kissed the old man. "Oh, my dear Papa, I'm with you at last. Now we'll always be together, always, always." "Oh, are you really my dear Pinocchio?" said the little old man. "Yes, yes, I'm Pinocchio, really Pinocchio. And you're not angry with me. Oh, my dear Papa, how good you are." Then Pinocchio began to tell his story, and Geppetto said, "I saw you too when I was on the sea, but I could not come back. Then the big dogfish swallowed me. It was 2 years ago. But how could you live here all that time?" asked Pinocchio. "What do you eat here? Where did you get the lamp?" "I'll tell you everything," answered Geppetto. "On the day when the dogfish swallowed me, he swallowed a big sheep too. There were many things in it, meat and chickens, sugar and sweets. I'm not hungry." "But, dear Papa," said Pinocchio, "now we must get out of here." "How?" "We must go through the mouth of the dogfish, jump into the sea, and swim away." "You talk well, my dear Pinocchio, but I can't swim." "I am a good swimmer," said Pinocchio. "You can get on my back." They began to walk back. At last they came to the mouth of the dogfish. It was open, because the dogfish was asleep, and he always slept with his mouth open. "This is a good time to run away," said Geppetto. They began to walk down the great tunnel of the dogfish. When they came to the end of it, the puppet said to his father, "Get on my back and put your arms round my neck." Pinocchio jumped into the water with his father on his back and began to swim. He swam, and at last they came home. Pinocchio becomes a boy at last. Well, my dear little readers, this is the last chapter of my story. Pinocchio became a very good puppet. He began to make little baskets and sell them to people. He wanted to buy a new coat for his father. Once he met the snail on the road. The snail lived with the fairy. Pinocchio was very glad to see her. "Tell me quickly, my dear little snail," said Pinocchio, "where is my mamma? Where is my good fairy? Is she far from here? Can I go to see her?" "My dear Pinocchio, the poor fairy is ill." "Is she in hospital?" "Yes, she is in hospital, and she has no money to buy a piece of bread." "Is that so?" cried Pinocchio. "Oh, poor fairy, poor fairy! I have only one gold piece. Here it is. Take it, snail, and carry it at once to my good fairy." The snail took the gold piece and went to the fairy with it as quickly as she could. That night, when Pinocchio was asleep, he saw the fairy. She kissed him and said, "Very good, Pinocchio. You are a good boy, and I'll give you a present. You will know tomorrow what that present is. Good night, dear boy. Try to be good and you'll be happy." At that moment Pinocchio opened his eyes. It was morning. When he sat up he saw that he was not a wooden puppet, but a boy like all other boys. He jumped out of bed and found a new shirt, new trousers, a new cap, and new shoes ready for him. He put on his new clothes. Then he put his hands in his pockets and pulled out a little purse. On the purse were these words: "The fairy with the blue hair gives this money back to her dear Pinocchio. She thanks him very much." He opened the purse and found one gold piece? No, children, he found 100 gold pieces there. Then he looked in the mirror. He didn't see a wooden puppet. He saw a boy with black hair, blue eyes, and a nice mouth. How happy Geppetto was when he saw him. "Father, where is the old wooden puppet?" asked Pinocchio. "Here it is," answered Geppetto, and looked at the big puppet on a chair. Pinocchio looked at it and then said, "How bad I was when I was a puppet, and how glad I am to be a boy."